Welcome back to Process Cast with Mark Anderson and Samantha Blake, your go-to podcast for insights into business process management and the technologies transforming the way we work.
Have you ever felt that pressure? Like you're at a crossroads as a manager. You're supposed to have the map, but you're not quite sure which path leads to success, which one sends the team down a dead end.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough spot to be in when a really big decision lands on your desk.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever thought about how to make your decision-making skills sharper, how to lead with more confidence, we're going to dive into all of that.
That's exactly it. That's the challenge we're going to unpack today.
Yeah.
We're going to explore some really practical, actionable strategies that managers can use to develop better decision-making skills.
Right.
We'll be looking at this from a few angles.
Yeah.
How do organizations make choices? How do they develop leadership?
Yeah. And to do that, we've been digging deep into some really interesting research.
Oh, yeah.
Articles from Bain Company, Deloitte Insights, even some really interesting stuff from KPMG in Germany about how they approach leadership development.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. A lot of great material to really understand how to make smart choices.
It is. And our goal today is pretty simple. We want to give you, the listener, some solid takeaways, fresh perspectives on this, things you can put into practice right away, not just to make decisions, but to make better decisions that boost your team's performance and help your entire organization do better.
Yeah, and one thing that really stood out to me from Bain Company is that they made this really clear link between decision effectiveness and, cold, hard financial results.
Yeah.
That connection is pretty powerful.
It is. They're basically saying that how well an organization does financially is a direct result of how good they are at making good decisions consistently and then executing them well.
Yeah.
Think about any big project or initiative, right? Launching into a new market, changing up a product.
Right.
The success or failure almost every time comes back to the quality of those decisions made along the way.
And they even took this idea and applied it to the whole war for talent concept. Instead of just saying, get the best people, they say, find and empower the people who can actually make those big decisions, the ones that really matter.
Exactly. It's not just about filling roles. It's about strategically putting people where their decision-making abilities can really shine,
Right.
where they can make the biggest impact.
Yeah. And that leads right into their point about finding those key decision-making roles.
Yeah.
And what I found really interesting is that these roles aren't always at the very top, like in the executive suite. They give some great examples.
Yeah, like that Maersk example.
Yeah, Maersk. Navigating the complexities of the Chinese market, that wasn't just about decisions made in a boardroom in Copenhagen.
Right.
It was about the people managing those river terminals, the local partnerships, the folks on the ground making those calls.
Absolutely. Or think about Amazon's merchandising engine.
Right.
All those algorithms that determine pricing, personalized product recommendations.
Amazing.
Those are decisions made by teams that are much closer to the customer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true.
Or that mining company in South Africa,
Yeah.
where they realized that to be more efficient, they needed to empower those qualified mining engineers, the ones actually in the mines, to make crucial decisions in real time.
Right. Those examples really drive home the point that those impactful decisions can happen at all levels of an organization.
Yeah.
And they talked about these linchpin employees, those experienced, respected people everyone goes to for advice, for guidance.
Yeah, the ones you trust.
Yeah, and if you identify those roles through this decision-making lens, it really helps you focus your approach to talent.
Absolutely. It makes your talent strategy much more targeted.
Yeah.
Less about just filling every single position and more about finding the right people for the roles that really drive the organization forward.
It's all about impact, right? And that leads to how do you actually assess and develop this decision-making talent?
Yeah, how do you find those people?
Bain Company made a point that it's not enough to just look at someone's overall performance.
Right.
You need to look specifically at their ability to make those crucial decisions quickly, effectively, and then actually put them into action.
Exactly. And they highlighted how work itself has changed. It's less about that one brilliant person making decisions on their own and more about a team working together, kind of like a relay team,
Right.
passing the baton of decision-making smoothly.
I like that analogy, the relay team.
Yeah, so assessment needs to look at how well people work together in that process, not just how well they can analyze things on their own.
It's a more collaborative approach.
It is. And that's why traditional performance reviews might not be enough anymore.
Yeah, that example of the mining company in South Africa where 80% of employees were rated above average,
Oh, yeah.
and yet the company wasn't doing well. That shows a real disconnect between those reviews and actual impact.
Yeah, it's like, are those reviews really reflecting how well people are making decisions?
Exactly. So they changed their whole review process to focus more on decision-making skills.
Yeah, and then use that information to reward high performers with better pay, development opportunities, things to keep them there.
And those who needed help, they got coaching. So there's that development aspect too.
Right. It's about helping everyone get better at making those important decisions.
Yeah. And this all ties into that debate about rotating leaders, moving them around every few years to give them broader experience.
Oh, yeah. That's a classic approach.
But some of the data they presented really challenged that idea.
Interesting.
Like, there's a strong link between how long a store manager stays in their role and how well the store performs, or how long a bank branch manager stays and how satisfied customers are.
Yeah, that's counterintuitive, isn't it?
It is. And Shinhan Bank, they actually have a policy of promoting senior leaders from within, specifically people with lots of experience in branch operations.
Where those customer-facing decisions are being made.
Exactly. It's almost like in certain roles, keeping those experienced decision makers in place might be better than constantly rotating them.
Right. It challenges the traditional thinking.
And that Gallup survey they mentioned about employees feeling like they get to use their strengths every day, that really supports the idea of putting people where their decision-making skills are strongest and letting them stay there.
Yeah, it makes sense. Put people where they excel and let them thrive.
Okay, so let's say you've figured out those key roles and you've identified your best decision makers. Then what?
Well, then it's all about aligning them, making sure they're in the right spots, and thinking about how to use your resources wisely.
Right, so you're not relying on just a handful of people for every important decision.
Exactly. Bain had this great example of a tech company that did exactly that.
Oh, yeah.
They found out that only a small number of their most important positions were filled by their top performers.
Wow.
And even fewer of those top performers were in roles that really needed their decision-making skills the most. So by shifting their focus to decision-making, they were able to move their talent around in a much smarter way.
And those strategies for optimizing talent demand, I thought those were really interesting.
Like what? What stood out to you?
Well, like making sure that people with very specific skills are only focusing on decisions that actually need those skills,
Yeah, it's about using their expertise where it matters most.
Exactly. That example of the mining company, freeing up those mine managers from doing administrative tasks so they could focus on those core mining decisions.
Oh, yeah. That's a great example of maximizing impact.
It is. It makes you think, why have someone with specialized knowledge doing tasks that someone else could handle?
Right. It's about being strategic with your talent pool.
And this also connects to that idea of standardizing procedures, right?
Oh, yes. The franchise rules of the game.
The FROGs.
At the mining company. By standardizing processes and equipment across all their mines, it made it easier for managers to move between locations.
Mm-hmm.
And it meant that less experienced people could step into those key roles with more confidence.
Right.
And the fact that the managers themselves helped create those rules probably made a big difference in how well they worked.
Yeah, they had buy-in because they were part of the process.
Exactly. And this standardization meant they didn't need a super specialized expert in every role.
Mm-hmm.
So those seasoned veterans could focus on bigger, more strategic decisions.
Right, it freed them up.
And they said that individual manager performance increased by up to 20%. That shows how powerful, well-defined processes can be.
It really does. Okay, so we've talked about finding those critical decision points, getting the right people into those roles. But what about the bigger picture, the framework for how those decisions get made?
That's where Deloitte Insights comes in with their concept of decision rights.
Right, decision rights.
They define it as the rules, the practices, whether they're written down or just how things are done, that determine who makes which decisions, what kinds of decisions need to be made, and how you go about making them.
It's like the operating system for decision-making.
Exactly. And they make a really strong case that clear decision rights lead to better business outcomes.
Yeah, their research shows a strong link to revenue growth, customer satisfaction, hitting financial targets.
It makes sense, right? If nobody knows who's supposed to make a decision, things get delayed or duplicated, or they just fall through the cracks.
It creates chaos.
It does. And they point out the risks of that.
Yeah.
Missed opportunities, projects stalling out, important decisions just disappearing.
That can really hurt an organization's agility.
It can. But the good news is They say that intentionally designing and clarifying decision rights is something you can actually do.
You can fix it.
You can.
Yeah.
And they outline 5 key traits of organizations that are really good at this decision design stuff.
Let's break those down. First one, simplifying and clarifying decision rights.
Yeah, that's the foundation.
It's all about being crystal clear about who makes what decisions and how.
And they introduced this framework, RACI.
RACI.
Responsible, accountable, consulted, informed.
So responsible is the person or team actually doing the work. Accountable is the one person who owns the outcome.
Right, just one person ultimately responsible for each decision.
Then you have consulted, those whose input you need.
Before you make the decision.
Right, and informed, those who just need to know what happened.
Once the decision is made.
It seems like a really powerful tool to avoid confusion and get everyone on the same page.
It is. And Deloitte gives this example of a big financial services company, a Fortune 500 company.
Okay.
They tried to become more agile by reorganizing into these network-based teams, but it didn't work at first because it wasn't clear who had the authority to make decisions.
Interesting.
It wasn't until they focused on defining those crucial decisions and who was ultimately responsible for them that they started to see improvements.
So clarity is key.
It is. The second attribute is all about accountability.
Okay, so it's not just who decides, but what they're accountable for and how that's measured.
Exactly. It's about defining ownership, setting clear metrics for success, and having systems in place to track progress. And the key here is to learn from both successes and failures, to analyze the decisions themselves, not just point fingers at people.
That creates a culture of learning, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they also said it's important for decision makers to understand not just their own authority, but also what everyone else involved is doing.
Right, so you can spot bottlenecks and keep things moving smoothly.
Yeah, understanding the whole process.
Okay, the third attribute, aligning everyone in a decision-making group around a shared mission.
This is especially important for complex decisions where you have a lot of people involved.
Right, because group decisions can be great for getting different perspectives, but they can also get bogged down if everyone has different priorities.
Exactly. So having a clear shared goal is crucial.
Keeps everyone focused.
Deloitte suggests creating a clear charter for the decision-making group with support from leadership and making sure everyone's incentives are aligned with that overall mission.
Yeah, like everyone's rowing in the same direction.
They gave this example of a pharmaceutical company that sped up their drug development process by doing exactly that.
Oh, how did they do that?
They created cross-functional decision groups with a unified goal. That streamlined everything and minimized delays.
So a shared mission really can make a difference.
It can. The fourth attribute is about encouraging distributed authority.
So giving more decision-making power to the people on the front lines.
Exactly. Instead of having to escalate every little issue up the chain of command.
That makes the organization more agile, more responsive, right?
It does. When people on the front lines have the power to make decisions that affect their work, the organization can adapt much faster to changes.
But even with distributed authority, accountability is still important.
Absolutely. Everyone needs to know what decisions they can make and what the boundaries are.
Right. It can't be a free-for-all.
And at that pharmaceutical company example where they gave frontline teams more control over certain financial and performance decisions, that led to a much faster drug development timeline.
So empowering the right people can really speed things up.
It can. And finally, the fifth attribute, prioritizing the customer voice in decisions.
That seems fundamental, but it's definitely worth highlighting.
It is. Understanding and responding to customer needs is absolutely crucial.
Yeah, it's all about the customer experience.
And one way to do that is to give more decision-making power to the employees who are actually interacting with customers.
Right. Those are the ones who really understand what customers want.
Exactly. Like that example of the consumer products company that gave their customer-facing teams control over key distribution decisions that made them much more responsive to changing customer demands.
So that's a quick rundown of those 5 key attributes of high decision design maturity from Deloitte Insights. Really good frameworks for thinking about how your organization is structured to support good decision-making.
It is. It gives you a roadmap for setting up your organization for success.
And now let's switch gears a bit and talk about how individual managers can develop their own decision-making skills.
Yeah. How do you get better at making those tough calls?
KPMG in Germany had some interesting insights on this through the lens of management coaching.
They believe in coaching, yeah.
Yeah, they see it as a powerful way to help managers grow and develop their skills.
And it's not just for managers who are struggling.
Right, it's for anyone who wants to be more effective.
Exactly. And they outlined 5 areas where coaching can really help. First, developing core leadership skills.
Things like communication, conflict resolution, decision-making itself, time management.
All those essential skills that underpin good decision-making.
Right. It's about building that foundation.
The second area is increasing overall performance. So, through coaching, managers can learn how to leverage their strengths, address their weaknesses, get better at setting goals and developing strategies.
It's about maximizing their potential.
It is. And the third area, improving employee management. I thought that was really important.
Yeah, because how you manage your team has a huge impact on their performance and on the decisions you make.
Absolutely. It's about motivating your team, identifying and nurturing talent, giving good feedback, and creating a positive work environment.
It's about creating a space where people can thrive.
Exactly. And the fourth area is mastering challenges.
Yeah, those tough situations that test your decision-making abilities.
KPMG emphasizes that coaching gives managers a safe, confidential space to talk about those challenges, explore solutions, and develop strategies for dealing with things like stress, conflict, and making those high-pressure decisions.
It's like having a trusted advisor in your corner.
It is. It is. And finally, the fifth area, self-reflection and personal growth.
That's so important for becoming a better leader and decision maker.
It's about understanding yourself, your behavior, how you impact others, identifying your blind spots, and realizing your full potential.
Yeah, it's that deep dive into yourself.
And KPMG makes it clear that coaching isn't just for people who are struggling. Even successful leaders can benefit from it.
It's about continuous improvement, right?
Exactly. They also talked about the range of services that executive coaching can offer.
Like what?
Individual coaching sessions, leadership training programs, personality assessments, 360-degree feedback, help with goal setting, conflict management, even things like work-life balance and succession planning.
It's pretty comprehensive.
It is. It shows that becoming a better decision maker isn't just about learning a few techniques. It's about personal growth, self-awareness, and being able to effectively lead and manage others while making those important choices.
It's about the whole package.
It is. So to sum up, everything we've talked about today points to one key thing. Good decision-making is essential for organizations to succeed.
Yeah, it's not optional.
And the good news is managers can develop the skill, they can get better at it.
And there are clear steps they can take.
Right. First, understand which decisions are the most important, the ones that really matter. Then make sure the people who are best at making those decisions, the ones who can do it quickly and put them into action, that they're in those key roles.
So the right people in the right seats.
Exactly. And then set up a clear framework for how decisions are made by defining decision rights, who decides what, and how that process works.
Make it clear for everyone.
And finally, keep learning, keep developing through things like coaching so you can keep getting better at making those tough calls.
Continuously improve.
Yeah, that's how you move beyond just reacting to things as they happen and start proactively shaping better outcomes for your team and your whole organization.
Yeah, it's about being in control.
And that's what separates truly effective leaders and high-performing organizations, that ability to be proactive and intentional.
So I want you to think about the important decisions being made in your world right now. How could clarifying decision rights, maybe by using that RACI framework we talked about, or by focusing on developing the decision-making talent on your team, how could that help you unlock new levels of performance and encourage more innovation?
It's a powerful question.
It is. It's something worth thinking about and maybe exploring further. There's a lot here to unpack and apply to your own work.
Definitely. These ideas can make a real difference.
Absolutely. So keep those decisions sharp, and until next time, keep those processes flowing smoothly.
See you then.
Thank you for listening to ProcessCast. This episode was brought to you by HEFLO, the BPM platform that empowers businesses to document, automate, and optimize their processes with AI. Experience the intelligence to simplify complex business processes and accelerate your growth with our complete management solution. Visit heflo.com to learn more. Be sure to follow ProcessCast for more insights on business process management, and don't forget to share this episode with your network. Until next time.